Welcome you to the Close.io webinar about startup sales success. I'm super psyched about this session today. I've seen a lot of founders, a lot of CEOs, a lot of really awesome startup folks joining the webinar today. We're going to be recording the session and we're going to be talking about 30 minutes about everything that it takes to be successful in startup sales. And then we're going to jump into a Q&A session. Now, first, let me start off and introducing myself. My name is Steli Efti. I'm the co-founder and CEO of ElasticSales and Close.io. Why do we care about startup sales? First of all, we have a long history in startup sales because we probably helped over 100 venture-backed startups in Silicon Valley to develop a sales model and scale sales. So we have a lot of experience working with many different startups, helping them through the most challenging time in sales. Startup sales is really the king's class, the top class, the most difficult class of things to sell. And we help so many different venture-backed startups that it gives a really unique perspective and knowledge base that we want to share with the world to empower more startups to be successful. And out of all that experience, we actually developed our own sales software, Close.io. And Close.io is really, the perfect startup sales tool. So, we're deeply invested. We have a lot of experience in this topic, and hopefully this talk and this webinar is going to give you everything you need to succeed by doing sales for your startup. Let me start off by saying that I believe there's only three core functions and three core individuals that are adding tremendous value to a startup. There are people that design products, there are people that build products, and there are people that sell products. So you're looking for designers, for hackers, and you need hustlers. The startup game, especially if you're in the B2B play and you're selling to other businesses, it's all about the hustle, it's all about sales, it's all about understanding how to make things happen. Now let's look at the basics of what it takes to succeed, as a startup hustler, and for your CEOs and founders who are looking to hire people, what are the key criteria that you're looking for in a startup hustler? So in a startup salesperson. Number one, you're looking for individuals that have a focus, a total focus on results, that are results driven in their nature. People that understand that it doesn't matter how active I am, it doesn't matter how much I run around or how many hours I'm in the office. All that really matters are results. What revenue do I bring in on a daily basis? What deals do I close? What press do I get ourselves? How much money have I raised for our business? Results, right? It's really result-driven individuals that succeed in sales, especially in startup sales. Number two, you're looking for people that have a certain sense of impatience, right? And impatience usually is not a good trademark of a human being, but for a startup salesperson, it's actually a really, a really key ingredient, because you want people that want to find shortcuts and shorter ways to get to results. People that don't want to wait around forever, but are kind of go-getter personalities that want to go out there and make things happen. Number three is you want to look for people that have a little bit of shamelessness in them. And I know, again, that doesn't sound like the best trait in the world, but it's really important, really useful, and really valuable in startup sales. So what I mean by shamelessness is just the type of personality that's willing to ask for things that others aren't. The type of person that's going to go for things that other people are just not going to go for, because they're going to think that it's too risky, it's too crazy. I shouldn't ask this person for the sale right away. I shouldn't ask this person for this big introduction. People who feel uncomfortable asking for favors and going for things that seem a little risky are just not going to make it in the startup sales space, right? So you look for people that are a little shameless, that are comfortable enough to ask for things other people don't ask for. And then you're looking for people that have an incredible follow-up. Sales is all about the follow-up. You're not going to win in the initial introduction, the first meeting, the first call, the first email. You really are going to win in this game in the follow-up. Are you actually follow up and follow through? Are you really a person of your word? Are you really going to be following up until you get to a result? Are you going to make sure that you continue to checking back and following up with individuals, with your deals, with whatever is going on, until a result has occurred, right? Going back to a focus on clear results. A startup salesperson is not just interested in, oh, I emailed these people, now I'm waiting around for things to happen. No, a startup salesperson is going out there and following up until she gets a result, right? So a strong follow-up is a key ingredient for startup sales success. The next thing is the ability to deal with rejection and what I always like to say, a high tolerance level for pain. I'm not talking physical, but emotional pain, right? We're looking for individuals that are able to deal with rejection, that are able to hear no more often than they hear yes. And that's something that, rejection is something that we all have grown and learned to try to avoid in our daily lives. Most people have designed their entire life around the fact that they're trying to just avoid rejection. Now, startup salespeople need to have a total reverse in that philosophy, need to look for rejection, need to be able to deal with rejection, need to be able to emotionally feel okay about themselves even after they heard no and no and no again. It's really key to sales success because people are going to burn out no matter how, how great of a communicator a person is, no matter how, impatient, how result driven a person is. If she can't deal with rejection, she's just going to burn out in the startup sales game because you're going to hear no way more often than you're going to hear yes, especially in the early days. So the next thing that you're looking for, trait number 6, are high values. This is, after all, startup sales and not, vacuum cleaner sales or, used car sales, to just use two kind of two examples that might be a little unfair, but give everybody a sense for what I'm talking about. Like when it comes to doing sales for a startup, you need people with integrity. You need people that ultimately want to create value in the world. You need people that are driven and want to close deals and want to make things happen, but for the right reasons, because they want to, have part in a better world, because they want to create something amazing, because they want to make customers happy. You are looking for people that really have high values, values that are totally aligned with your values as a company, because this is not, just a switch of bait. This is not the type of sales where you just close the deal once and it doesn't matter, what the product does or if it really delivers on success. For a startup, you need to be able to succeed. You need customers that are happy ultimately. So you need somebody that really has high integrity and values, and you need somebody that is really resourceful. Startups are all about resourcefulness, right? It's all about taking little and doing a lot with it. It's all about finding new creative ways to take restrictions and turn them into innovation. So you need people that, in startup sales, a lot of things are not going to be given when you start out. So you need people that have the ability to take, the very little that you have. You might not even have a finished product. You might not have the pricing figured out. You might not have any customers or any key accounts to be able to show others and gain credibility. You're going to lack on all accounts. So you need somebody who's incredible, resourceful, and going to be able to deal with that. All right. So these are really the key 7 traits for startup sales success. And when you're looking to yourself or to hiring others that are going to join your team to sell for a startup, you need to check off on all these 7 key ingredients. All right. So now that you know what it takes to be, successful as a startup salesperson yourself or on the individual level, what is really one of the first steps when you start with startup sales? Obviously, the minimal viable pitch, right? The MVP. You're looking for like the simplest first way to sell somebody else about your service or product, about what you're doing, your startup, right? You need to figure out a minimal viable pitch. And that is all about is really just like coming up with a 1 paragraph pitch, a 60-second pitch, the elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, something that's very limited in time and that explains to somebody else clearly what you do and why it creates value, why they should desire that. And, I want to share a story about how we started this very company, because we started it all around the minimal viable pitch. When we had the idea for ElasticSales to begin with, to empower startups to tap into a virtual sales force in the cloud and get, sales on demand, basically, we thought, well, how do we know that there's a real market? And how can we, as quickly as possible, figure out what all the problems and all the challenges will be in this market for us? So instead of wasting all this time, like building a nice website, coming up with a nice brand, starting doing PR, putting together presentations, researching the market, we don't want to waste 3, 6, 9 months before we actually learn what customers will tell us. So what we did is we had this idea for ElasticSales, for a sales team on demand on a Monday morning, and by Monday night, we'd written down a small script, a minimal viable pitch. Here's how we would pitch this to somebody. What we did next is We created a lead list. We went out there and we looked for Series A and Series B startups in the Bay Area that we didn't know, where we didn't have any connections to. And then we said, you know what? On Tuesday morning, we're going to start hitting the phones, cold calling these startups, and giving them our minimal viable pitch, pitching them on our idea. And then we're going to let those startups educate us on the pricing, on what they like or don't like, what objections they have. And if we can, and then we set a goal, we said, within the next 2 to 4 weeks, if we can convince one startup to become a paying customer of this service without having any credibility, we used fake names because we didn't want the world to know we're exploring this idea. So with no credibility, no website, no nothing really, if we can just through a cold call acquire a customer and get revenue within 4 weeks, then we're really onto something. We're going to explore this idea further. Let me show you the pitch and why it worked, and then I'll tell you about the results. So this is really the script that started ElasticSales and Close.io, right? We were cold calling companies in the Bay Area, startups that were well-funded, and we were giving them this pitch. We started with, hey, my name is Steli. I'm calling some startups in the area to find out if they're a good fit for a beta program. Now, the very first sentence on the phone, at least, needed to be all about who am I, and why should you give me one more minute of your time? Why should you keep listening? Because we all know when we pick up the phone and somebody speaks that's a stranger that we don't know, we try to figure out, fight or flight, do I really care? Can I get rid of this person? What does this person want from me? So I needed to say the minimal amount of words to make somebody think maybe I should listen for another sentence. And we used a lot of lingo here. So we told people we're calling startups. We told people in the area, so assuming we're also in the area. So that creates some rapport. And then we told them that we're looking for good fits for a beta program. Good fit, not customers. Is this something that will work for you? Suggest that we're looking for a value partnership. And also, we're looking for people for a beta program. And beta program is highly sales lingo. Probably the companies we call had a beta program themselves. So all these things build rapport to make somebody think, maybe this is somebody that I know, maybe this is somebody that's in my area that I should listen to for just another sentence. And then the next sentence, really importantly, needed to give context. Now, this is the minimal viable pitch. This is the one sentence, not even 60-second pitch. This is here's what it is, right? Because now that the person decided, I want to listen to this person for one more sentence, that sentence need to tell me, what is this about? So we would say, what we do in a sentence, telling them that this is not going to take forever. So kind of suggesting to them, hey, relax, this is just going to be a sentence. What we do in a sentence is we provide companies with a sales team on demand, right? We'll tell them what we do is sales. We give you a sales team on demand. That was the shortest way we could think of explaining what we would do. And then we would ask, does it sound generally interesting to you, right? At this point, it really didn't matter if the person said yes, no, or maybe. If somebody said yes, I'd say, great, let me ask you. And I would jump into the qualifying section. What is your current sales process like? If they said maybe, I said, great, let me ask you, what is your current sales process like? And if somebody said no, I'd say, wow, that's interesting. What's your current sales process like, right? So it really didn't matter what somebody said to me, but I still wanted to give people a chance to give me a response, to tell me what they think, so they don't keep thinking this is not for me while I'm talking. I give them a chance to air their thoughts, and then I come back with a few questions that would allow both parties to figure out, is this really not a fit, or is this really a good fit, right? So what you need to know, you need to have a few assumptions on who qualifies for your service. So in our case, we wanted to know, do they have salespeople? Do they have sales revenue? Do they have customers? Do they have leads? And what is a deal worth? What were the basic questions we figured out we needed to know in order to understand if we could actually offer value to somebody? And then once we had that, we would jump into what I call a test close or a virtual close, basically telling people all the restricting factors and figuring out if this deal could actually really happen in the future. So in our case, we would tell them, well, we were planning to start the beta program in 4 weeks. Does this timeline work for you? Right? Kind of figuring out if they're really serious about this. If they say yes, obviously it was good. Some people would say, no, we wouldn't do this in the next 6 months. And kind of gives you an idea how likely is this deal to happen now. The next question was, hey, this beta program is heavily discounted. It's only going to be X dollars per day per salesperson. We just came up with some pricing. I'm going to talk about pricing soon, more in the presentation. We wanted to know, are they willing to pay for this? So we'd ask that question and would say, is that in your budget? Then we would ask, hey, if I could only offer, I will only be able to offer you one salesperson to begin with, to kind of test things out before we allow you to hire more salespeople through us. Is it going to be fine with you? And the truth is, that the reason for that was we didn't have multiple salespeople for our, like, sales on demand and a scalable sales force. We didn't have that many salespeople yet. So we had to restrict people on one salesperson. And then we asked them the most crucial question: what is the decision-making process going to be in your company? How quickly can you make a decision? What are all the steps it's going to take for us to close a deal, right? Now, this script, cold calling companies using fake names, no credibility, we said within 2 to 4 weeks, if we can get one paying customer, we're in business. Within 2 weeks, we had 7 paying customers, way more than we could deal. We had to kind of just take 2 on board immediately, and the other ones we would tell we can only start in 2 months or in 3 months, kind of giving us time, buying us time to be able to hire salespeople to service these customers. So after that, we hit the ground running, and we never had a chance to take a breath or look back. We've just been growing the business ever since. So now that you have a minimal viable pitch, let's talk about minimal viable pricing. I'm a big proponent, especially when it comes to sales, to asking for money. You need to put a price tag on what you do. And the reason for that is that pricing is a great clarifier. Pricing or charging for your product will easily and immediately separate the interested parties from the real buyers, right? When you pitch somebody, especially startups have this issue a lot of times, this challenge, is that if you're a startup, you're probably passionate about what you do, and most likely you're doing something cool, or you're trying to fix something interesting, or you're doing something new, right? So by definition, people more likely than not will like what you do and will like you as a person. So when you pitch them on your product, on your service, they're probably going to feel the need to be nice to you, right? In some cases, and be encouraging. And that's a real problem, because that encouragement and that being nice, many inexperienced salespeople and many inexperienced people in startup sales will take those as real buying signals and say, wow, we have a real market. We should go on and invest all this time and money in building this. Wrong. Put a price tag on things and see if people really still are interested and would be interested in actually paying that price. And now some people ask, but how do I price a product or even just features in a product that aren't yet really ready, right? What you do is, at the beginning at least, you can go and do some research and see, what do other products in this market cost and how do we relate to that? Are we more low cost, low solution, for the mass market? Are we really a premium product? How do we relate to things? Now, what if I have a product that has no competition, nothing to compare against? Well, look at the broader market. Who are your buyers? Is it, marketing? Is it something else? And if you don't know, if there's really no way to kind of get a first price to play with, just guesstimate, just pick a price, try it out, and then move up or down depending on the reactions that you get. But you need to name a price for you to be able to tell if people are really interested. Now, how do I get somebody to not just tell me, yes, I would pay, $10,000 for this or $100 a month for this, but to actually get them to pay it even before the product is ready? Well, it's easy. You can offer people 2 things when you're in the early stages of either a product development or thinking about building out some really complicated feature before you go out and build these things, because quote unquote, that people will like it. Because before you do that, before you make all that investment, actually try to get a real customer to pay money today for something that you're going to offer them tomorrow. And here's how you do it. You offer them a massive discount for early commitment. You tell them, you know what? Is this something, at X dollars a month, at $100 a month, or at $1,000 a month that you would be really interested in? Does this really fix your problems, eases your pain? And then the customer says, yes, I would totally love this. We would totally buy this. The moment you have this ready, we'll buy this. Say, great. I have a special offer for you. Just for the first 50 customers, what we offer you is a massive discount of 50% lifetime if you commit today to purchasing this product. So what you do is you put down a deposit of $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is. It's totally refundable. And in 3 months, when we launch the product, instead of having to pay $20,000 for it, you saved yourself a huge amount of money. You interested or not? Real buyers are interested in that. Real companies are interested in that. Why wouldn't I want to pay 50% rather than 100 and basically saving myself tons of money if I know it's totally refundable? I can get my money back at any time. And car companies do that, right? Tesla, for an example, has done this really successfully. So offer people a discount if they commit early. And on top of that, what you can do is you can tell them if it's a feature that you're going to move it up in the timeline if they commit early. A lot of times, entrepreneurs, founders, CEOs, VPs of sales ask me, well, we have this huge enterprise client, and what they want is they want us to develop these massive, complicated feature, but they're going to pay us this huge amount of money. Should we do it or not? We're kind of like, are we going down a rabbit hole that's going to be a mistake for us? How do we decide if we should be doing this or not? And what I ask them is, charge money for it right now. Tell them, dear enterprise customer, if you want this feature, we in our product development roadmap, this feature would be developed in 9 months or in a year. But since you need this feature earlier, we can move this down the timeline and release it just in 3 months. If you pay a deposit upfront for purchasing this product or this feature, and it's totally refundable, and we need 3 months to develop the feature, but it's probably going to take us a few months to close this deal, to go through legal and all the steps that we need to take to make the deal happen. Then after that, we're going to have to do some training. It's going to take anyway some time, but we can get it done in a really short amount of time and much faster in our timeline than we used to if you pay for moving the feature up in our timeline, right? Offer people to move the feature in the timeline, offer them massive discounts, get them to pay today, even if it's just a deposit, even if it's totally refundable, get them to actually wire money or write you a check so you can identify that there's a real buying intent. Really important. Now, overall, when you do minimal viable pricing, you experiment with pricing. You need to be comfortable with the fact that you might have to increase prices or decrease prices. And when you start off, you most likely are not going to get it right. So just feel comfortable and be fine with that. What's the sweet spot that you're looking for when it comes to reactions to your pricing? You don't want everybody to say, oh, this pricing is no problem. Most startups are looking for that. Like, how can we price our product in a way that everybody is going to like the price and price will never be an issue? Wrong. That's not how you actually capture the optimal level of value in the market. You don't want everybody to just say, pricing is no problem. You're so cheap. We're going to buy it. You also don't want everybody to be like, this is way too expensive. We're never going to buy it. What you're looking for is a sweet spot where about 20% think it's too high and are not going to buy because of price. And 20% are thinking, well, it's no problem. It's super cheap. And pricing is no factor. And the majority, 60% of prospects that you're talking to, think it's a little high, but the value still outweighs the price and they're still going to buy and move forward with it. That's kind of the sweet spot that you're looking for when it comes to minimal viable pricing. You're pricing for your product or services as a startup, all right? So now that we have a minimal viable pitch and a minimal viable pricing, what do we do next? Well, we go for low-hanging sales. What I described earlier with like doing cold call with no credibility, no website, no references to close deals, that's a little bit of a hardcore example, right? We're really experienced in sales. I'm very experienced in sales. So kids, don't do that at home. You don't have to make life so difficult for yourself. What you can do is you should start with the low-hanging fruit, the low-hanging sales, right? What do I mean by that? You first go to family and friends, people in your network, your investors. You go to anybody and everybody that you know and have some kind of a connection with, and you ask them if they want to buy the product, if they know somebody they can refer you to that should buy the product, right? You just go to anyone and everyone you know to try to get deals and leads into your pipeline. In the early days, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be shameless in the way you use your title. So if you're the founder or CEO, you want to use that title as much as possible. People love to buy from the founders. People love to buy directly from the CEO. People love to talk to the most important person in the company. So use that title as much as possible. Be shameless about that title as a way for you to open the door and close the deal. And if you're an early sales hire, see if you can get a cool title. See if you can be like director of sales or something that suggests importance, that your level of importance in the organization, so that people take you more seriously and are more interested in connecting with an individual with that kind of prestigious title. We all know it's bullshit, especially in startups, but in sales, it actually helps. So use it. When it comes to referrals and introductions, you want to, again, be very, very focused and a little bit shameless in getting those introductions and referrals from your immediate network. Obviously, you want to do your homework, right? And make lists. You want to create lists of like, what are the companies that I want to sell to? What are my ideal customers? What are the kind of top 10, top 30, top 100 companies we should try to pitch to, right? So make lists, prepare your homework, and then do some LinkedIn research and find out, do I know anybody in those companies? Do I know anyone who knows anyone at these companies? Do our investors know anybody? Just do some research and see if you can find out who the right referral or connection would be. And then don't just go to investors or your network and say, hey, could you make me an introduction to this company? And then, expect the person, probably a busy and important person like an investor or another CEO or founder, to write an email about your product, basically selling that other person why they should be taking a meeting with you. That's too many times too much friction. You want to make this a frictionless process. So you want to write the email, write a template that you can send to people that you want to make referrals for you and say, hey, can you make an introduction to company XYZ? Below a little blurb on what you can send people, and you can edit it or change it however you want. 90% of the time, people would just copy paste whatever you wrote to them to make their life easy, so they don't have to think about and compute it totally and write something from scratch. They're just going to copy and paste. Maybe sometimes they're going to edit something or add a sentence and send it. You want to make giving referrals and making introductions for your business frictionless. And then you really want to be shameless about how you go about this, especially with your network, your family and friends, your coworker or ex-coworkers, your investors, whatever, your alumni, people that you know. You need to be a little shameless in the early days. That's what it takes. What I mean by that is, when you send somebody an email and you ask for introduction or a referral, if you get it, awesome. If you don't get it, don't just stop there. Follow up. Send me another email and be like, hey, I know you're busy. Can you just give me this next 60 seconds and send this email to this person? It would be a tremendous help in building our business. If that doesn't result into anything, pick up the phone and call the person. Pick up the phone and say, hey, John, I wanted to quickly call you. I know I sent you 2 emails. I know you're super busy. Do you have 1 minute? Most of the times people will say yes. And then you say, you know what, can you sit down and make that introduction right now for me? It's really crucial, right? And if that doesn't work, see if you can meet with them in person, invite them for lunch. And when you sit there and you drink coffee, you catch up with them, pull up your laptop, open it up, open Chrome in incognito mode, let them log into the email account and have them make the introduction right there and then. Busy people, important people, they want to make introductions. They want to create value. They want to help you out. But most of the time, they just get busy, and your introduction is not the highest item in their priority list and to-do list. So it just keeps on, jumping back and falling down in the list of things to do. Make it so you capture somebody's full attention and you help them to get the task done that you're asking them to do. So you're going after low-hanging sales, you're doing great, you're getting first customers, now you want more sales. What's the next logical thing that most startups think? Well, let's hire more salespeople, right? Nope, wrong. It's the wrong thing to do. Let's talk about sales hiring one-on-one and startup sales hiring in particular, because you now have your pitch, some kind of a pricing. You went out after all the low-hanging fruit. You try to get all the kind of easy deals that you could get. Now what? Like, how can you grow from here? Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the stage you're in, because there are 2 distinct stages when it comes to startup sales in particular that you need to know about. There's a sales exploration phase, and then there's the sales execution phase. And startups confuse those 2 phases all the time. When you're in sales exploration, what that means is that you do have a product and service, you do have some sales, you have customers, you have people who pay for your product or service, but you don't yet have a sales model that's predictable and repeatable. You don't have something that you've done time and time again that can be easily replicated. You haven't left your bubble, the low-hanging fruits, your network. You haven't left to the cold world out there of businesses and people who don't know you and don't care about you to actually turn those into customers. And as long as you're in that stage where you have some success, but you don't quite have like something that's totally predictable, repeatable, you're still exploring and testing and iterating. And in that phase, you don't need to hire tons and tons more salespeople. You're still in learning phase. It's like on the product side, when you have a minimal viable product, you play around until you get product market fit. Here, you need to get to sales market fit. You don't hire hundreds and hundreds of engineers before you have a product that people, or a basic minimal viable product that people care about and resonate with. So you're most likely in sales exploration phase. If you're in sales execution phase, that's when you have a model that totally works and where you know all the microeconomics and unit economics of your sales model. And if I add a salesperson, this is exactly what it costs me. This is exactly what I get as a return. This is the timeline of return. So I know I need to crank up and just hire tons and tons more people. So when if you're wondering, oh, but how can I get more sales if I don't increase the people that are doing sales? Well, as I mentioned before, first of all, your incubator is not a scalable source of leads. Your brother-in-law is not a scalable source of sales hiring. Like, if everything you've done is low-hanging fruit so far, you're not ready to scale. You're not ready to hire like crazy. So what you need to do is you need to hire smartly and do the right things. So in sales exploration hiring, there's a couple of key things you need to know. At this stage, you as a founder or one founder needs to be heavily involved in the sales process. You cannot, in the early stages, totally outsource this. You need to be really involved. You need to talk to customers. You need to send emails. You need to show up at meetings. You need to just be part of the sales process, because there's going to be a lot of insight. There's going to be a lot of data. And there's going to be a lot of inspiration out of the reactions that you're getting from the market that you as a founder need to just know firsthand to bring back to big decisions on strategy and direction. So founder involvement is a must. Next, don't go out there and hire somebody super senior at this stage. When you're still in the sales exploration phase, you don't need somebody who's incredibly experienced. Most people make that mistake. They go out there and they try to hire a director of sales or VP of sales with 10, 15 years of experience. Wrong. And here's why. That person is going to be incredibly expensive. That person, if that person is really, really good at what they did, that person is past the point of wanting to do the hustle themselves. They don't want to do hundreds of cold calls. They don't want to have to deal with all the BS of the early days. They've kind of passed that point in their career. What they want to do is they want to manage a sales team. They want to grow a sales team. They want to scale sales. So they're going to come into your startup wanting to scale something that's not yet working. What you need to do is you need to hire 2 young and hungry salespeople, ideally 2 years of experience, not more, because they're going to have everything you need to actually get your sales to the next level. So you've done all the early sales yourself. You've done the low-hanging sales yourself. Now what? Yes, you want to hire salespeople, but not just hundreds of them and not super experienced ones. What you want to do is you want to start with 2. 2 is a good number because it creates some level of competition, which is good in sales. It's a competitive activity, and it's also going to give you kind of more than one sample size. So now you have 3 people, one of the founders and 2 young and hungry people that have drive, that energy, that want to do whatever it takes, and that have just enough experience in sales that they know the basics. They understand the basics, so you don't have to educate somebody from scratch. You can get them cheaply. There are bigger pools of those people, and you can actually use them to expand the tests that you make, the things that you try out. So now you have a sales team of 3 people. Go and try cold emailing, cold calling, sending emails, going to events. You explore, you try all kinds of different things, different verticals, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work. And you don't need to hire more people, no matter how stagnant things are, until you have kind of figured things out. Once you kind of know these things work, these things don't, or these verticals or these kind of prospects or customers are total waste, and these are kind of working, and we're closing deals in this area. Once you kind of know what you're doing and you have like some repeatable results, although it's not yet a perfect model, that's the time when you're moving over to sales execution mode. And that's when you're trying to hire somebody that's sales leadership, somebody who has a lot of experience taking kind of a team from 3, 4, 5 people, scaling up to 30, 50, 100 people. You want somebody who now will take all the legwork that you've done and improve on it and perfect it and scale it, right? So once you have that person, it's going to be hard for you to find. It's going to be a number one priority. But once you have that person is probably going to assembly line your sales process. So you're not hiring individual salespeople that are doing everything from the prospecting to sending emails to making calls to giving demos to following up to closing accounts to giving some early support and training. You don't want that. You want to kind of assembly line the process so you can actually easily scale and you have full control over each step of the process. So if something is broken, you can easily identify it, right? You're looking at that stage to start hiring highly specialized individuals, people who are doing lead gen, people who are really great at qualifying customers, people that are really great at closing customers, and then people that are really good at actually training those customers and keeping them successfully. You want individuals that have these individual strengths to actually get peak performance on all levels and also be able to control things as you scale them, right? So once you get into sales execution mode, it's all going to be about refining, improving, fine-tuning, and scaling your model. Most startups try to get there much too quick. They get some low-hanging sales, they get some early results, and then they want to hire a VP of sales, and they want to assemble and scale their sales. That's just one step. It's flying before you can walk, right? First you crawl, then you walk, then you try to fly, step by step. So now that you have, that you're in sales exploration mode, what do you try to explore? What is the model that you're trying to explore? Well, there's a simple rule. There's two key factors that you're looking for in your startup sales to know if you're ready to scale, or to know if you're ready to move to the next level. Can you create repeatable and predictable results? That's the biggest question. And then when you can in small quantities, when you have like 3 or 4 people and all of them can create repeatable results week after week, month after month, then you want to see, can you continue creating predictable and repeatable results at scale, right? So you go from just 3 or 4 people and you add a bunch more people and see, do we still get the same results? How easily can we get people through the door that can give us the same output that we're generating right now? And once you have a predictable and scalable sales model, you're ready to rock. That's the time where you really crank up the volume on sales. Now, how do you get there? There's really 3 steps to sales epiphany, sales model epiphany, if you want so. Step number 1, while you're doing exploration, you really need to nail your customer's profile. You need to really figure out who is our ideal customer. Who is that? Many times I'll talk to startups and they'll tell me, well, we're ready to scale. We have customers. We make money. We're great. I say, cool. Who's your ideal customer? And they're like, well, that's a difficult question. I mean, we have some customers that are in this vertical, some customers that are in totally different vertical. It's kind of like everything and anything. You're not ready to scale if you don't have a very concrete answer on who is your ideal customer. It can't be everybody, right? Must be somebody, something specific. And then you need to know, how do we qualify them? What are the key common traits of highly qualified customers, highly qualified leads for us? What are the key traits that they need to have? If you don't have a list of, a company needs to have these 5 key things for us to know that they need to buy our product and we're going to create tons of value, then you're not ready to scale. So figure out your customer profile in the sales exploration phase. Step number 2, once you know this is our ideal customer, now the most important thing is for you to figure out scalable sources of highly qualified leads for those customer profiles. Without leads, you cannot grow sales. That's a thing that most startups get wrong. They have great salespeople, they have a great first hustling team, and they get great results. They're like, let's scale now, let's grow. Well, where do you get your leads from? Well, I don't know. How many leads do you get a month? Well, about this and this amount. Well, how are you going to grow? How are you going to support a growing sales force, a growing group of salespeople, if they don't have a growing amount of leads to work with? Leads are really the lifeblood, the foundation of sales. So you need to figure out that one piece before you can scale anything. Lead sources, you need to explore inbound versus outbound. You need to explore what happens when we go this direction, that direction. And then when you have lead sources, you need to look at those sources and say, how big are those sources? Like, how long can we actually work with this specific source of lead before it runs out? And how highly qualified are the leads in this source? Some sources are going to be ginormous, but the quality of leads is really going to be low, versus other sources that are going to be incredibly high quality, but very, very small. You really need to figure out the lead sources and figure out a bunch of them that support a growing sales force before you're trying to hire more people and scale sales. And then step number 3 is the sales process, right? You need to figure out what's the most successful way to sell to my customers. Is it inbound? Is it outbound? What emails do I need to send? Is it calls? Do we show up in person? What kind of demos do we give? What's the average timeline? What kind of objections do we need to manage? What kind of documentation do we need to have? You need to experiment with all models to figure out what's the ideal sales process to get the maximum amount of value in the minimum amount of time for every lead that we get, right? Once you know your customer, once you know where you can get massive sources of leads for those customers, and you have an idea about your sales process, then you're ready to move on from exploration to execution. So last but not least, let's talk about some key startup sales metrics that you're going to have to track along the way for you to know how you're doing, right? Obviously, you need to know the number of new leads that you're getting per week, per day, per month. You need to track the percentage growth of those new leads that are coming in every month. And if you cannot grow your leads every month, you're not ready to grow sales. It's as simple as that. Once you have those two key factors, excuse me, you need to look for the quality of leads. What is the percentage of leads that we're generating that is actually qualified? And then out of the qualified leads, how many of those actually close, right? Those are kind of all the key funnel metrics that you need to keep track of. Most importantly, the amount of leads and the increase in leads that you're generating. That's kind of the top of the funnel metrics you need to track. And the second half of the funnel is how many of those leads do we actually qualify, and how many of those qualified leads do we actually close, right? Those are the key metrics you need to keep an eye on startup sales. Then on a higher level, what you want to look at is, the average time to close. Does it take us a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year? How long does it take us to be able to actually close a deal? And out of that number and the metrics that I explained above, you'll figure out what your customer acquisition cost is and what your customer lifetime value is, or the revenue per customer. You have these key 7 metrics. They're going to tell you when you're ready to grow. They're going to tell you if you're doing things right, and they're going to point out to you where your problems are. Maybe your problems are not on the lead side of things, but on the quality of your leads. Maybe the problem is not on the amount of leads and the quality of leads, but the problem is on the time it takes to close a lead. Like, you're going to be able to look at all those 7 key metrics and identify where the issues are that you need to work next on before you can actually scale sales for your startup. All right. So if you liked kind of the webinar, the content that we went through, there is an email course. It's 9 emails over 30 days where I talk about startup sales success. And I go into a lot more detail on the things that we discussed today. So you can just go to close.io/free sales course and type in your name and email and get kind of more content around startup sales success that we described today. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about today. Was a fun ride. I'm now ready to jump into Q&A mode and love to kind of go through all your questions and answer them. You can always get in touch with me at Steli, Steli, at close.io. Ask questions, give feedback, challenge some of my points, share your stories. Let's all work together to have more success on the startup sales side of things. Thank you so much, guys. All right, I'm going to jump now to the Q&A session.